So vendor 4001, and instead of choosing a standard PO, choose framework order FO. And when you choose FO, you have to select a different set of criteria. For example, you have to select a validity start and end date. Meaning, you've asked the vendor to supply $20,000 worth of goods, so that's an open amount, and you have to specify how long that offer or open amount is valid. For example, it's valid from today until, let's say, 2 months or 1 month. All right. And I'm not going to specify a material. Why? Because I'm not asking for a specific material, coffee cup or parchment paper. I'm saying I'm giving an order worth $20,000. It could be for any of these set of materials that you supply. So I'm going to give a blanket description, say consumables for coffee shop. That's going to include everything, all kinds of classy materials. Now, remember, this does not include coffee or coffee machine or pastry. These are high value materials and these are essential materials. So you also want to keep track of that material in stock. So you don't want to use a framework order or a blanket purchase order for those kinds of materials. Example, coffee comes in, you need to store it in stock. At any given point in time, you have to know how much coffee you have at hand. But coffee cups, you don't care. Parchment paper, you don't care. So for materials like that, you don't have to store them in stock. And because you don't have to store them in stock, you could do a blanket PO. You just go by the value. We'll see how GR is different in this case. So please enter material number or account assignment category. That means that because it's a non-stock purchase order, meaning we're not going to stock the materials, you obviously need a cost center or some kind of account assignment. We have seen this when we were procuring non-stock materials. Remember, for stock materials, you don't need an account assignment, meaning when you put it in stock, it's accounted for. But for non-stock materials, you always need a cost center or some element that captures the cost. So in our case, we use cost center. Some cost centers say the admin department or one of the overhead departments eats the cost of consumables. All right. So we use account assignment K. An item category is not blank. It's not a standard purchase order, right? So what is it? Item category is B. Enter. And because we are not entering a material, framework order forces us to enter a material group. Basically, that's something that's used for reporting. Okay, so material group is say 015. Okay, and then it says, please maintain services or limits. So we have created a framework order, but we didn't specify the amount. Remember, we said 20,000. That's our limit. So let's go specify the limit. Overall limit is 20,000, but in most cases, that's the upper limit. Are we going to consume all the 20,000? Well, maybe not. Most of the cases, we tend to consume only 10,000. All right, we could specify 10,000 there. And of course, we need a cost center, right? In this case, let's use admin. All right. So the admin department is going to eat the cost of procuring $20,000 worth of consumables. Simple enough, right? Now, save it. All right, we got our framework order. All right, let's make a note of this purchase order. And now, what is the next step? We have created a framework order. Now, how is this going to be different from a standard purchase order? In a standard purchase order, when you procure coffee, when the vendor is ready, he's going to ship the coffee. And you're going to use MyGo to receive the goods and stock it, right? In case of a blanket PO, we've mentioned that it's a non-stock material. So we're not going to stock them, number one. And number two, when we are not going to stock them, we don't even need to do a MyGo. The vendor sends the invoice and you pay the vendor. It's as simple as that. You want to see an example? Myro. And the invoice date is today. And it's against a purchase order, right? So it's allowed posting periods, blah, blah, blah. We can go to MMPV and fix it. So I'm going to do that here. MMPV. Oh, let me do it in MMPV. So the company code US01. Again, I could do this offline, but the point I'm trying to make here is you get these kinds of errors all the time. So be used to it. MMPV, close your posting periods. Now, here in one of the previous chapters, we have done negative stocks, right? And because of that, it says some materials have negative stocks in one of the previous periods, so I can't close the material posting period. What do you do for that? Allow negative quantities in the previous period, right? Click OK. So in cases like that, check this on. Allow negative quantities in the previous period. All right. And that closes the previous period. Now we are good to go. So Myro, we want to receive the invoice for, let's say the vendor has sent $1,000 worth of cups, and that's today against this PO. Okay. Now here is what we need to enter. Go to account assignment and say the amount is for $1,000. Check and then back, right? And the amount here we got the invoice for is for $1,000, right? Let's remove this guy and make sure we are 0% tax here. All right. Now all the messages are gone. Let's see if we can save this. So what we have done here is create an invoice or receive the invoice that we got from the vendor for $1,000 against the purchase order. All right, the document has been posted. Now if you go back to the purchase order, what do you see here? Actual value of $1,000, meaning $1,000 has been consumed from an overall limit of $20,000. And as the vendor keeps sending those invoices, this value will keep accumulating until it hits the limit of 20,000, after which you really can't take in any more invoices. The services will be stopped and the vendor will ask you to raise another blanket PO.